Everybody get located. Let's have our signal over there. We're off key, folks. Let's get back on pitch. Give it over here. The real guy. Give it to the deaf fella. Do it, the deaf fella. Is that it? Let's do it together, folks. Ready? Do it again. Do it again. Now you got to remember that, because that's going to change America, folks. It's the beef is right there, buddy. And there's plenty to take care of you, I'll guarantee you for sure. Because you got too much pork right there under your tie. Over 300 men surrendered to preach last night. Over 300 men. Amen. While people are saying, nobody to fill the pulpits, call us. We got some that'll fill your pulpit. May empty your pews, but it'll fill the pulpit. All right. Once again, it's a joy to have one of my preacher friends to come this morning and tell you something about the early days of his life. And we're certainly honored to have one of my dear preacher friends from days gone by.
So good to be here with you this morning. I'm so glad to be here with you. You may notice I have my bodyguards with me this morning. You see, yesterday a hearing impaired man came up to me and he went, I took that as a death threat. You probably can't tell it, but I have a bulletproof vest on right now. In fact, I have 3 or 4 of them. I'm not fat, I'm just well upholstered. You know, many of you may not realize it, but the auditorium at the Bucky Baptist Church will seat a little over 5. Really, I know we took our staff in there and we sat in every seat and counted them. For a conference, we can cram an extra 3 chairs in there, and we'll have every seat in that auditorium packed and the extra chairs, and we'll have at least 10 people outside smoking around the church. And we have several thousand of them home watching TV at that time. And, you know, if our TV watching crowd pulled out, if just that one crowd pulled out, it'd be the largest church in our state, really. That one crowd. Really. People ask me, Bucky, what's the success of your ministry? What's the secret behind all of it? I just have to mention that song that's meant so much to me all these years. It's called, It's All Because of My Amazing Face. You see, I'm cute. That's why I'm so successful. That's why I'm doing so good. Some of you don't have a chance. Another reason why I'm doing so well in the ministry is because I practice environmental evangelism. I just put out the Bucky Baptist Pulpit Series, which is a collection of sermons of Brother Hyles that I have preached. Brother Bob Gray is one of my best subscribers. Just didn't mean to wake you up there, fella. That's okay. I slept through your sermon the other night. You sleep through mine. Go ahead. I was preaching hard in my church. I kept losing all the tithers, and I was about to quit the ministry and give up. I just couldn't support myself, and one fella, he gave me a little song that helped me get through it, and I'd like to bring that to you right now. It goes like this. You have to tiptoe through the tithers, being careful to stay off their toes. So tiptoe through the tithers with care. Thank you. Thank you. I know many of you have been practicing that for years already, but you know, I was thinking about my younger days in the ministry, and I'm really big on PR. I really am. I'm really big on PR. I think we need to get more Puerto Ricans in church all the time. I'm really big on that. And I want the people in my church to know that I'm human. And so every day on the way to church, on the way in the morning to church, I always stop at the hospital, and I go to surgery with those who are having surgery that day. I've lost more gizzards and things that way. I leave them a little booklet that I wrote. It's called Backpacking for Shut-Ins. Well, you'll get that next week, folks, all right? You know, somebody asked me, Bucky, what would you do if you only had 6 months to live? I said, I'd go and I'd call my mother-in-law and have her move in with me right away. They said, are you crazy? I said, no, it'd be the longest 6 months I've ever lived in my life. Really, one of the people who really influenced me the most in my life is my mother-in-law. Seriously, she couldn't be here today. She's in heaven. But I'll never forget her last words. Get that pillow off my face! I was just trying to put her out of my misery. I remember our first church picnic. We had dinner on the grounds. The food got kind of dirty, but we ate it anyhow. Hey, get your pen and paper out. How many times I got to tell you to take notes when I'm preaching? Oh, come on, somebody take notes, come on. Look, you'll get more out of my messages if you're writing letters than listening to me. I feel burdened for some of you. Some of you little skinny runts out here. You see, you're not obeying the Word of God at all. And I know nobody taught you. When I was young, I didn't know this either, but I learned it through the years. I read in the Bible, Luke chapter 10 and verse 7, it says, in the same house remain, eating and drinking such things as they give. For the laborer is worthy of his hire. Go not from house to house. Some of you have been going house to house on your visitation, haven't you? You've been going house to house to house to house, and God said, don't do that. God said, stay in the house until dinner time comes and eat what they give you. Some of you backsliding and need to get right with God today. I'm going to preach the Bible whether you like it or not. The reason you're so skinny is because you haven't been staying in the same house and eating long enough. I know Brother Gomez has been fulfilling that scripture there. You know, I had a deacon in my church in the younger days, and the whole time I preached, he talked. The whole time I preached, he talked. I preached, he talked. I preached, he talked. Someone once said that he said more words than I said, and the people listened to him more than they listened to me. His name was E.F. Hutton, and when he talked, everybody listened. I'd like to share with you a story from my early life in the ministry. I was a young preacher. I was barely 21. I was going through a battle of a lifetime. I was taking a stand in my church, and I was preaching against organs. I was letting them have it. I was preaching against organs, and the denominational secretaries came and they said to me, Bucky, you're going to have to trim your message. I went to lunch with all the bigwigs. I sat there around that table with all those women. Those ladies looked at me and they said, look, Bucky, you can preach on organs, just don't name them. Preach on them, but just don't name it. I said, I'll preach against loose livers and floating kidneys as long as God gives me breath to breathe, as long as I got strength to stand in the pulpit. They said, we could make you famous. I jumped up, I hit the table, I said, I'm not for sale. You won't buy me, I'm not for sale. They said, then we'll starve you out. I said, you won't buy me, but maybe we can work out a rental agreement. You know, I knew Brother Hyles when he was young, and he wasn't always the great preacher that he is today. He's had to learn a few things, and I want to teach you a few things. I learned as Brother Hyles developed in his preaching, and I watched him, and I know how he developed some of these things. I know where he learned it. The first thing I'd like to show you is what we call the Hyles hop. He got that one Sunday with the Easter bunny. Then another technique he's got is this one. You'll recognize it right off. Now, let me tell you where he got that. He tells you the story about how he witnessed to Elvis. We just call that the Elvis emphasis. I've got to put on a jacket for this one. We call this the Shirley Temple tiptoe. And then, of course, one of his most famous gestures is this. That's left over from his softball days. It's called the umpire shuffle. And then you've seen this one many times. I'll tell you. What that is when his armpit itches. I'll tell you. I hope those little tips will be a blessing to you today as we bring to you the young Bucky Tucker and the young Jack Hyles. God bless you.
Welcome to Thursday of Pastor School. We're so glad that you all have been able to come to be with us this week. And I trust that you are enjoying as we go down memories lane and we learn about the young Jack Hyles. Although there have been many changes over the years, Brother Hyles, for example, has seen some generations grow up, and of course there are some of us who are selfish enough to say, we hope he's going for another couple or three. There have been many changes over the years, but Brother Hyles has never changed. In his love for the Lord, in his confidence in that blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. That song has been sung on the mountaintops. It's been sung down in the valleys. But that blessed assurance that Jesus is his has kept him at rest, lost in God's love. And what a place to be.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of his Spirit, washed in his blood. This is my story, and this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, and this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, perfect delight, visions of rapture now burst on my sight. Angels descending, bring from above echoes of mercy, whispers of love. Perfect assurance, all is at rest. I in my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with his goodness, lost in his love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, and this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.
I guess all of us would like to take the opportunity to express to those who have helped make us our gratitude. I'm excited this morning because I'm going to introduce to you somebody who represents a family of people who influenced my life tremendously. My pastor, well, people often ask me, who is the one person, one preacher who influenced your life the most? Immediately I say J.C. Sizemore. J.C. Sizemore was my pastor when I was a teenager. Now, he's been in heaven for a long time. I had him preach from this pulpit one time many years ago, probably 25 years ago. But he had a son whose name was John Sizemore. We called him J.T. Sizemore. He had another son also, but J.T. Sizemore came into my life at a time when I was a young man. I have been known in our fundamental independent Baptist circles as a promoter, as a Sunday school builder. We now for about 25 years have had the largest Sunday school in the world. And you have built Sunday schools because you have come here and you have learned how we have built our Sunday school. And you did not realize who started it all. It was a man named J.T. Sizemore, the son of my pastor. He came to our church as the education director, and he was a live wire, but he's in heaven also. But he had a wife, Margaret Sizemore, who was a bundle of enthusiasm and absolutely a picture of charm and grace. We're talking about good night. We're talking about 40 let's see, we're talking about 1942 and 3. We're talking about, how long is that, 50 years ago? Does that sound right? 44, 45? We're talking about 50 years ago. And I owe, in my ministry, my promotion, my Sunday school building, my Sunday school organization. For example, we had over 40,000 people in Sunday school last Sunday. We have over 800 Sunday school teachers here at First Baptist Church, over 800 Sunday school classes here at First Baptist Church. And all of it started when I was a teenage boy, when Margaret and J.T. Sizemore came to our church with enthusiasm and zeal and showed me. I just was sitting out in the pew. They didn't know they were influencing me. So there's a lady here this morning, I'll introduce her in a minute, Margaret Sizemore, representing that family. And you don't realize how much you owe this lady. We've been having this pastor school. This is our 32nd annual pastor school. And the greatest churches in America today are being built by people who have been at this pastor school. I mean, you don't realize who's been here. Folks that I'm sorry have been here. You, for example. But I got word that Jimmy Swaggart was at this pastor school one year. We influenced him tremendously. But I'm talking about men of other denominations that I wouldn't even want to influence for good. For example, the Assembly of God people. And I haven't got one charismatic bone in my body. But the Assembly of God people. A man came here from Rock Island, Illinois, at a church with about 100 people years ago. And the Assembly of God got the idea. Went back home within a matter of 5 years, running 3,000 people in Sunday school in Rock Island, Illinois. Then he was called to pastor the First Assembly of God Church in Phoenix, Arizona, which is now the largest Assembly of God church in the world. And he has his own pastor school. And for all the Assembly of God people, I'm not bragging, I'm complaining, but one of our members was out there and went to hear him preach, and he preached my sermon, God's Calls to Soul Winning. Call from within, call from without, a call from above, call from beneath. Dirty plagiarist. I hate Assembly of God preachers and Bob Gray. And they steal my sermons. I go somewhere to preach a sermon and somebody says, "You stole Bob Gray's sermon, didn't you?" But that's a lie. I stole Spurgeon's sermon. But all over America, pastor schools have cropped up. Dr. Trieber has one out on the West Coast, and Dr. Gray has one down in Longview, Texas, and others. There's a big Southern Baptist pastor school down in Jacksonville, Florida. It started right here. All of these men were here. The Southern Baptist leaders of today have sat in this auditorium, and I'm simply saying that the methods that were taught me as a youngster, that I saw, I emulated and copied, and you've used them through the years, and many of them, so I'm saying that anybody that's influenced me has influenced some of you, because with the grace of God, as an older person, I've been able to influence you. I'm thrilled and honored today to have Margaret Sizemore, to thank her for the influence she had in my life, and I mean this, because of her, I'm here today. I would not be here today had it not been for J.T. and Margaret Sizemore. Don't know where she is, but she's here somewhere. Here she comes, right over here. Dr. Malone says everybody he knows is dead. Everybody I know is old, it looks like, but including me. Margaret, get on up here. One of the most amazing personalities I've ever met in my life. One of the most charming people I've ever met. I call her Elaine Colston. Are you flying or walking, Margaret? Come on over here. Right over here. And I'm glad to see you. God bless you. Would you hold this microphone right up close to your lips, please? Margaret, of course, you got to hold it right up close to your lips. Your lips are right here. That's right. And Margaret, you've got to remember those days at Hillcrest Baptist Church. When you came and back, I think the war was on, wasn't it? When you came, what year did you come, remember?
I can't remember. It's been so long ago.
You got the same problem I've got. 1941 when you came, and you were a tremendous blessing. You and JT, you taught me how to grow a Sunday school. Remember anything about those days at all?
They're gone now.
They're gone now. That's right. Hold the microphone right up here like
right
that.
Right there. Oh.
Tell me what you remember. Do you remember me when I was a boy? I'm Jack Hyles. You were at Hillcrest Baptist Church one time, weren't you? Do you remember me when I was a boy?
I didn't know what it was. I don't remember. It's been so long ago.
JT, you and JT came in with all the enthusiasm that people could have. And Sunday school building, Sunday school promotion, big days, special occasions.
Yes, yes.
You taught me.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
your father-in-law, J.C. Sizemore,
yes.
tell them something about him.
Yes. What? Well, they went to Sunday school every Sunday and things like that, and I don't remember. It's been so long ago, I can hardly remember now.
I wish you wouldn't keep talking like that, Margaret.
It's just the way it goes.
I know that. Let me just tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
We brought you here. We know that you haven't been well. By the way, the Sizemore family is here. Some more of them, too. Would you folks stand over here, please, the Sizemore family? Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope you remember this, that you and JT made a young man excited about Sunday school. And the methods we use here at First Baptist Church today are methods that I learned from Margaret Sizemore so long ago I can't remember. So what I want you to do, Margaret, I want you to stand right over here, and I want you to know that, and just look this way, I want you to know that I would not be here today had it not been for you and JT. This church would not be here today had it not been for you and JT. And I brought you here to thank you. Had it not been for you, and probably more than any other living human beings, you and JT taught me how to build a Sunday school. Now, your father-in-law taught me how to study the Bible. He's the one who performed the wedding ceremony for Mrs. Hyles and me. And he taught me how to study the Bible. He taught me how to preach. He taught me convictions. I still remember we had some troubles in the church. We had 12 ladies. Of course, you don't know anything about troubles in the church. But we had 12 ladies that rose up against Brother Sizemore. And he stood up one Sunday morning and preached a sermon on the dirty dozen. I'll never forget it. And he taught me how to stand, and he taught me convictions, and he taught me standards. And I brought him here to thank him. But you and JT taught me how to build a Sunday school. And I'm here today because of you. Would you stand right here? I've written a little song I'd like for you to hear as the ladies sing it while you stand right there.
Because of you, I'm here today. You had a part in some small way. Whate'er I am or hope to be, you had a part in making me. You crossed my path one happy day and helped me find God's perfect way. I would not know the joys had you not humbly crossed my path.
I could not tell you how excited I am to show you Margaret Sizemore. She represents not only the man and the woman that taught me how to build a Sunday school, but the family that molded my path when I was a boy, a teenager. I owe her a debt, and all of you Hyles Anderson graduates owe her a debt. God bless you, Margaret. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad that you're here. Hurry. Now she's talking. I wish you could have seen her promote a Sunday school class. I wish you could have. She's the kind of person that could have run pastor school. And what'd she do? Ms. Colston, you want to know what you're like? There it is right there. God bless her. I'm not sure what the difference from shallow sin and deep sin is, but as far as deep sin is concerned, I've never known that kind of a life. It's a part of the world I've never known. But I did when I was a boy. I wandered. I never took a drink, but I'd hang around the drinking crowd just a tad. You know what I'm talking about. You were there also. And there was a song that was very special to me. You'll hear about it.
There was a time that the teenage Jack Hyles was struggling. And instead of sitting in his usual place on the front row in church, he was slipping farther and farther to the back, just back shifting, if you will. But there was one Sunday that the choir sang a song, "Yes, Jesus took my burden." And he was reminded that because Jesus was the one who had taken his burden, that he would let the Lord take his burden. And he got back where he belonged, back on the front row.
Subsided, my spirit was made strong, for Jesus took my burden and left me with a song. When I, a poor lost sinner, before the Lord did fall, and in the name of Jesus for pardon loud did call, he heard my supplication, and soon the weak was strong. For Jesus took my burden and left me with a song. Yes, Jesus took my burden, I could no longer bear. Yes, Jesus took my burden in answer to my prayer. My anxious fear subsided, my spirit was made strong. For Jesus took my burden and left me with a song. I'll
future, he knoweth all the way. For with his eye he'll guide me along life's pilgrim way. And I will tell in heaven while ages roll along how Jesus took my burden and left me with a song, with a song. Yes, Jesus took my burden I could no longer bear. Yes, Jesus took my burden in answer to my prayer. My anxious fear subsided, my spirit was made strong. For Jesus took my burden and left me with a song.
This morning I'm going to talk to you again about the young Jack Hyles. And you're going to enjoy this. I'm going to talk about the mistakes of the young Jack Hyles. And that concludes our morning session. This is the one Mrs. Hyles ought to be teaching instead of me. Our Heavenly Father, I pray you to help me to be a help. There are some young men out here struggling. And I pray you to help me to help them to avoid some of the mistakes that I made. Bless this session, please, in a very special way. Amen. I've listed numbers of mistakes that I made, and I'd like to think that you can avoid those mistakes. And I'm just going to go through them, and I'm spending most of the day on mistakes that I made as a young preacher. Number one, of course, the canned good deal I told you about. I'm going to pass the canned goods out to the deacons. Now, some of you young fellows like that, but that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it, but since I did it, it's a wonderful memory. And let me tell you where all that started, and let me tell you a mistake that I made. I was young. We were in a building program. The load was heavy. It was bigger than I was. See, I'd taken this little church as a 25, 26-year-old preacher. And the church was running 44 people. The first anniversary. Y'all cold this morning? How many are cold? All right. Would you folks right here move over here where they're warm, please, and trade with them? All right. How many are not cold? Raise your hand. All right. Looks like it's fine. Thank you very much. It all started in a deacon's meeting on a Saturday night. We had been in a building program. We were building a big auditorium to seat 2,200 people down in Garland, Texas. And I'd made a mistake. I'd forgotten to order the pews and had forgotten to allocate money for the pews. And I had gone too fast. I really had. Now, fellas, I want to tell you something. Don't go faster than your people can go. Keep your people up with you. Don't borrow money because you think it's time to borrow money. You get your people up with you so they'll know it's time to borrow money. For example, and I want to get to this sometime today, you're looking at probably the most conservative man in America financially. We don't spend what we don't have. I've been pastor of this church 35 and a half years. We've never been late one day on a bill. Never. We don't have any money because we find that money is to spend to get people saved with. But we pay our debts, and we pay them on time. And nobody in this whole area has a better credit rating than First Baptist Church of Hammond has. But I was a little careless in those days. I was young. I didn't know all I know now about finances, and we're going to cover that later on. But I'd gone too fast. I'd gone faster than I could keep the people up. And so the deacon chairman, by the way, he was not a bad man. He had a bad night, but he was not a bad man. In fact, this man that I'm going to tell you about, I tried to find him, to bring him here. Found out he'd passed away 2 weeks before we called, just about 4 weeks ago now. I tried to get his wife to come, but she was unable because of health reasons or something. She could not come. She almost was able to come, but she had to cancel at the last moment, or back out the last moment. it was deacons meeting time, and we were having a deacons meeting, and the deacons said, if you'd let the deacons do what they're supposed to do, we wouldn't have all this trouble. Now, of course, you know about the canned goods. How I pass the canned goods out and let the deacons do what they're supposed to do. May I tell you what the deacons do at First Baptist Church of Hammond? The deacons are not a board at First Baptist Church. You saw our deacon chairman standing over here just a moment ago. But our deacons are an advisory committee. They have no authority at First Baptist Church except recommending power. They meet on the first Saturday night of each month, and they make recommendations to the church. Now, the same men are on the board of deacons, and we have almost 100 deacons. The same men who are on the board of deacons are also the board trustees for Hyles Anderson College and for Hammond Baptist Schools. Now, as trustees for Hyles Anderson College, they do run the college. The college is a separate corporation, and those men, they're the board at the college, and they can build buildings and borrow money, and they are in charge of the college. But at the church, they're not a board. They're only an advisory committee. For example, we draw up a budget. Now, I'll speak about this later. We draw up a budget, and that budget is presented to the church, but the deacons can't spend a dime, not a dime. They draw a budget up, present that budget to the church approves that budget, and everything that is spent must be inside that budget unless it's a designated gift for some other purpose. And if we spend a dime over that budget, it's got to come to the floor of the church on Wednesday night business meeting. We stay within it. So, but anyway, this deacon chairman had told me that the deacons weren't doing what they were supposed to do, and I was tired. And he said, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, he said, in all the years you've been here, you've never said one good thing about my wife. Here comes my mistake. I said, in all these years I've been here, I've not noticed one good thing about your wife. You like that, don't you? Because that's what you'd like to say to a certain woman in your church. But I shouldn't have said that. I don't know why, but he got mad at me. And he left the church. And he literally hated me. And by the way, I was wrong. Let me say this. You can be less wrong than somebody else and still be wrong. Now, he should not have said that to me on a Saturday night, but I should not have said what I said back. Let me say this. Listen carefully. I treat my people with courtesy. I treat my deacons with courtesy. I'm not a retaliator. I treat them with dignity and courtesy and respect. But that man and I became enemies. He hated me, and I had righteous indignation against him. And if he had seen me on the street corner or walking down the street, he'd have walked over across the street and come back after he'd passed me. Unless I'd seen him first, then I'd walked over and passed him. Years passed. Now, I say years. Those times seem longer than it is now. But I'd say 3 years passed. I still had something in my heart against that deacon, and he was my bitter enemy. He had moved his membership to another church, of course, and in the meantime, I had moved to Hammond. Our middle girl, Linda, was ill. We took her to the doctor and found that she had to have her tonsils and adenoids removed. We took her out early one morning to the Dire Mercy Hospital, a little town south of here, and she had her tonsils and adenoids removed. They brought her back in the room, and everything was fine. And I was sitting there reading the Chicago Tribune, and all of a sudden I looked up, and Linda was swimming in a pool of blood. Literally, a pool of blood under her little head. I began to scream. Doctor, went out in the hallway. Doctor, call Dr. Friedman. Call Dr. Friedman. Nurse, doctor, somebody. Our little girl's bleeding to death. The nurse came and picked up that little girl and carried her down the hallway. Blood dripping on the hallway as the nurse carried her to surgery. She disappeared into a room that said no admittance surgery, and there for several hours the doctor operated on our little girl. I went to the room alone, a dark room, and I said, Dear God, you're going to have to listen to me. I need your help. I said, before I ask you my petition, I want to ask you, is there anything in my heart today against anybody, anything that would keep me from getting my prayers answered? And I saw that deacon's face on the wall of that room just as plain as in a video. And I jumped off my knees. Listen to me. I jumped off my knees and ran to the hallway of telephone and tried to call him. I couldn't find him. I tried every city, every town I thought he might live in. I could not find him. But I promised God I'd find him and make it right with him. And I went back and got on my knees. And I said, God, I'll give my life to search to make it right with that man. Let me ask you a question. Who you thinking about? Who you thinking about right now? Some of you preachers sitting here right now have something against your members. God didn't put you there to hate them. He put you there to love them. Yes, I got an old cantankerous deacon. Bible said, love those that hate you. Oh, but he's trying to hurt me. I'll get it. Bible said, bless those that curse you. But you know what? Bible says, pray for those that despitefully use you. I'm trying to help you not go through what I went through with. I sought and sought and sought for that man, couldn't find him. I was preaching at Galilean Baptist Church in Dallas, church Dr. John and I started years ago. Dr. Bob Keys is pastor, and I preached there Monday and Tuesday, and a church in Greenville, Texas asked me to come and preach, Lamar Baptist Church in Greenville, Texas. And I'll declare, I just don't preach anywhere on Wednesday night. I'm home on Wednesday night. I do not understand, but God spoke to my heart, impressed me. I was supposed to go speak on a Wednesday night at Lamar Baptist Church in Greenville, Texas. Small church, about the size of this section right here. I walked on the platform, and right in the middle, that didn't have any center aisle, section like this, 4 rows back, right in the middle, I looked and I saw that deacon and his wife. I couldn't tell you how I felt. First thing I wanted to do was duck. I was afraid he might have a gun. I said, Dear God, if you let me live, this sermon's over. I'm going to go back and make it right with that deacon. And by the way, some of you guys, you know, we preachers preach around the country. We sometimes leave the wrong impression. We take the stories where we were mean and now we told them all, and you get to, yeah, that's the way we live. That's not the way we live. And we make a mistake. I'm guilty of it in using, for example, a story over north side of Hammond. A guy called me a fake in front of 13 people, and I said, I'm going to pray God to kill you. And I put my hand on his head, and he apologized. I was going to pray for God. And boy, folks love that story. But for every one story we tell how that we made mistakes and got bitter and mean and mad, there are 1,000 stories how we've asked forgiveness and we've tried to help and be kind to people. And I finished the sermon. I told the pastor, I said, would you pray a rather lengthy prayer? I got some business I want to take care of while you're praying. And the man, pastor prayed. I started to close my eyes a little bit, just open where I could see and a little bit, and walked over here to go back and make it right. I bumped into somebody right over there. I looked up, and it was that big, tall man. I'll tell you his name, a good man named G.P. Wiggs. I wanted to have him here, and I wanted to introduce you to him. And I saw him, and I looked up at him, and I said, he's a big, tall fellow. I said, Brother Wiggs, I want you to know I'm so glad to see you. It's awful hard for me to say those 2 words. It's hard for you to say them too. But you ought to say them. And I said, Brother Wiggs, I'm sorry. I felt like I just had a bath. But do you mean do us mean, hard hitting, hell bent for leather? Get out of my way, I'm coming through. It might do us good sometime to say I'm sorry. A lot of you preachers think you got voted out of your church for persecution's sake. It was for stupidity's sake. And that deacon, God bless him, looked down at me and said, Preacher, it was my fault. You were tired and young, and you were in a building program, and I shouldn't have talked to you that way. And I said, Brother Wiggs, I said, it was my fault. I was the pastor of the church. I had to be the example. I had to be the leader. And it's my fault. And he said, Pastor, he said it wasn't your fault. It was my fault. I said, now you listen to me, Buster. It was my fault. We sat there and fussed for about 2 minutes over whose fault it was, and the Lord up in heaven was laughing and clapping his hands. May I say this? You don't know whether this is true or not, but he knows it's true. From that day to this, I've had many a battle, but I've never held bitterness in my heart toward any person in the whole world. I promise you, if my bitterest enemy, I promise you, I'm not bitter against every morning when I go to work, or if I don't do that, sometime during the day, I drive by the house of my bitterest enemy. A man hates me more than any man hates me in this whole area. I drive by his house every day and ask God to give him a happy day and a good day. Oh, that's not very good. You like preaching against soap operas and the dancing and the mixed women and movies, and you like that the better. But let me tell you something, brother. Be loving your enemies and praying for those that despitefully use you and blessing those that curse you just happens to be in the same Bible that teaches separation. We're losing too many of our fundamental churches because of preachers that never have learned to say I'm sorry and never have learned to love people. And now, I'm not saying trim your message. Preach it. I mean, heal the dead, cast out the sick, and raise the devil. And I'm for that. But in God's dear name, you're not supposed to hate anybody. That's one mistake I made. Mistake number 2. I came to Hammond. That's my mistake number 2. I didn't want to come to Hammond. Yankees were up here. Strange people. All of them having speech impediments. And I said, let me walk in the fields. He said, no, you walk in the town. But I said, there are no flowers there. He said, no flowers but a crown. But I said, the air is thick and there's nothing but noise and din. But he wept as he led me back. He said, there is more, there is sin. But I said, the sky is black and the fog is veiling the sun. He said, but souls are black and they walk in darkness undone. But I said, I'll miss the flowers, and my friends will miss me, they say. He said, my child, choose tonight if I am to miss you or they. I beg for more time to be given. He said, my child, is it hard to decide? It will not seem hard in heaven to follow the steps of thy guide. So I took one look at the fields and cast my eye toward the town. He said, my child, won't you yield and exchange your flowers for a crown? So into his hand went mine, into my heart came he. And for 35 and a half years I've walked in a light divine in a path I once dreaded to see. I wish I could tell you how good God's been to me in Hammond, Indiana. I wish I could tell you the joy of my soul of pastoring even Yankees. I even love Yankees, even Pollock Yankees. Our Pollocks even say amen. Well, they say amen-ski and praise God-ski and glory hallelujah-ski. But when I came here, it was tough. Folks, you don't understand what I came to. I came to a church, had 22 committees. It took 5 people 7 days to put petunias on the communion table and had to have 3 meetings. 22. Somebody said a committee is a group of the unprepared who are unqualified to do the unnecessary, who read the minutes and waste the hours. Somebody else said that a camel is a horse assembled by a Baptist committee. But 22 committees. The first conference we had is a missions conference. The missions committee said you can't have it because we didn't approve it. And I said, watch me. I took an offering at the missions conference, and the finance committee said you got to have our permission to take an offering. My assistant pastor, Jim Lyons, who came with me from Texas, put a picture of his children and wife up on a wall in his office. The next Sunday it was taken down. The trustee chairman put a note up there saying you got to get permission. The board of trustees put a picture on the wall. My predecessor preached in a scissor-tail coat and striped breeches. No gospel song was allowed on Sunday morning. Just anthems. Sevenfold amens, Gloria Patris, all of it. I was not at home. we had a battle. I didn't know what the American Baptist Convention was all about. I didn't even know the church was in it till I got here. And found out the church was American Baptist, which is liberal as all get out. The mayor of the city was on our board of trustees. President of the big bank downtown was on our board of trustees. The man that owned this huge department store over here at that time was the biggest department store and the fanciest department store in the entire area, and the richest man in the area, and a man whose tithe was $50,000 Sunday I came. His tithe, $50,000. They were on my board. They decided to get rid of me. We had battle. Big battle. We were invited, it all started when Mrs. Hyles and I were invited to go eat with this richest man in town that ran this department store. He owned the church almost. Everybody's scared of him. He invited us to eat. Everything we had to eat was flown in from Europe. European food. We had French fries. Danish pastry. Polish sausage. It was all flown in from Europe. I mean, it must have cost him $10,000 to fly that food in from Europe. We sat at that table. I never saw so many forks in my life, lined up like soldiers in pursuit. Spoons and knives and forks and everything. I just said, Miss House said, "You watch me do what I do." I just kept my eye on her. But what I noticed was she was watching Mrs. Minus, the lady that was at the house, you know, the big shots. We got about halfway through the meal. Mrs. Minus said, "Reverend, have you joined the Ministerial Association yet?" Oh, my soul, why couldn't she wait till I'd eaten my meal before she asked that? And I said, "Not yet." You call that pussyfooting. Some of you guys have your doctor's degree in that subject. She said, "Are you going to join it?" And I said, "I'm going to pray about it." You call that compromising. I wanted to eat that European food before I got kicked out of the church. She said, "Let's pray about it now." Oh. I pushed my chair back. She said to me, "You're going to tell me right now if you're going to join the Ministerial Association." Now, brother, I'll die before I'll sit around the table in the Ministerial Association. A bunch of fellows don't believe the book's the Word of God. I won't mess with that. And every stinking one of you preachers here belong to some Ministerial Association where you got a bunch of non-Bible believers. You ought to get out of that thing, get right with God, and build New Testament church. She said, "I want to know now." I pushed my chair back, looked at Mr. Minus, and I said, "Mr. Minus," I said, "you own the Minus department store. You're probably the richest man in all this county." I said, "If you ever need any advice about how to run the Minus department store, and you want me to give you advice, you call me and I'll be glad to give it to you." Now I said, "If I ever need any advice about how to pastor First Baptist Church, I'll call you if I need it. But I said, until you call me and ask for my advice, I'm not going to stick my nose in your business. And until I call you and ask for your advice, you're not going to stick your nose in my business either." Now that was not a mistake. That was not a mistake. By the way, he got up, got my coat, it was wintertime, got Miss Hyles' coat, gave our coats and hat to us, opened the door, didn't even give us a doggy bag to take that food home. We walked out in the dark. Hey, wait a minute, I was 33 years old. I was not 68, I was 33. A kid preacher. And we had a battle. 406 people walked out of this church. We voted to pull out of the American Baptist Convention. And everybody that's in it ought to vote to pull out of the American Baptist Convention. But we voted to pull out. And 406 people walked out one Sunday morning. they started what's called the Meadow Lane Baptist Church in that town, we had 700 people left. They had 406. We've grown from 700 to last Sunday 40,000. They've grown from 406 to about 125. Now, so far I'd taken my stand. Everything was fine. I was walking down about 2 or 3 weeks later down the alley on a Sunday night, and a man who'd been the deacon chairman and the man most responsible for getting me here to Hammond, but who wanted me to be his little preacher boy, and I don't fit that. He wanted to father me, and so he met me outside the alley here, and he said, "I want you to know they may have left, but I'm not through fighting yet. I was weary and I was tired. Here's my mistake." I walked to the pulpit that night and preached a whole sermon to that man. Didn't call his name, but everybody in that room knew I was talking to him. And I let him have it. 45 minutes, lambast after lambast. I knew I'd done wrong. I, Jack Hyles, do not believe in preaching a sermon to an individual. I, Jack Hyles, believe in feeding. If you're going to skin somebody, skin the whole crowd. But I singled the guy out, and that was wrong as I see it. And I've said this for years. That's what I always believe. He said I hadn't changed. I haven't changed about that either. I do not believe that you ought to go home and get up in the pulpit and skin somebody individually from the pulpit. So I did. When it was all over, I knew I had to leave. Our baptistry was located in this building over here that later burned. I won't tell you who burned it, but he was from the Texas. And arson had burned it. But I walked over to the baptistry dressing room, and I knew it was all over. Deacon Chairman Ed Roush, God bless his memory, he's in heaven now. Ed Roush was a businessman. He was up in years. He walked in the dressing room, and I said, "Ed, I know I'll resign Wednesday night. I know I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it. And I know that I can't stay here now. Now, you deacons, listen to me. I wouldn't be standing here if it had not been for Ed Roush that night." He said, "Pastor, you did make a mistake tonight. I know you did, and you know you did. But," he said, "there's still 1,000 people out there in that building that love you, and I'm one of them. And you made a mistake, but I had an idea you weren't perfect, and we called you. And I, for one, am overlooking that mistake you made tonight. And I'm going to use my influence to influence the people to overlook that mistake that you made tonight. And the next Wednesday night, of course, this is beneath your dignity. This is beneath your Pharisaism. The next Wednesday night, Dr. Jack Hyles walked to the pulpit of First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana, and said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." I said, "Folks, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it." Now, folks, look, if we're right, let's live and die by it. If we're wrong, let's admit it. That was a mistake. Mistake number 3. Just to make it. I hired a man one time because he was famous and talented. I don't hire talent anymore. I hire character. Remember that lady stood here yesterday and told about her daughter that they're going to take a kidney out? I had to have a secretary about 25 years ago. I was trying to find a secretary. I said, "How about Rose O'Brien?" And somebody said, "Rose can't type." I said, "That doesn't make any difference." I said, "Rose O'Brien's got character." I'm not trying to look for a typist. I'm trying to look for a loyalist. I'm trying to look for a typist. I'm trying to look for somebody to work. I hired that woman as a secretary, and she couldn't type a lick. And she took typing lessons and learned how to type. If you're what you ought to be, you'll do what you ought to do. But I hired a man one time because he was famous and talented. Now listen to it carefully. I'm giving you stuff this morning you don't really like. Because you want me to get a gun and start shooting my enemies. That's what you want to do. I'm not going to call any names, but I really want to kindly, because I've got some folks in this world that hate me with a passion. I hope someday I'll have the opportunity to take my coat off and give it to them. This man hired. When I hire somebody, unless he is Benedict Arnold, I don't fire him. I've never fired anybody on the church staff. Now the school, see, I don't work at the schools. I operate the schools from my office, but I don't work at the schools. I go out about once a week, preach at chapel at the college. Maybe one other time a week, go out for some reason. But I have not been in the chapel of the Hammond Baptist Schools all year, though I operate the schools from my office. But I'm going to tell you something. I don't fire people because they don't work hard or because we don't agree. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. If I hire somebody, I initiate the employment. And then they say they'll come to work for me, so we are partners in the crime, if in fact it's a crime. You follow me? Anybody home? We're partners in the crime. Now then, if he doesn't work out, it's my fault and his fault. Is that right? Then why should he do all the suffering? If a man doesn't work out, who works for me, I don't fire him. Here's what's going to happen. I shared in the crime with him. I was partner in the crime. I asked him to come to work for me. He didn't come. I asked him to come to work for me. So we together committed the crime. Now, if I fire him, here's what's going to happen. His wife loses her house. She loses her church. She loses her pastor. She loses her friends. She loses the children's school. And my wife loses nothing. But we shared in the crime. His children lose their Sunday school teacher, their youth director, their school, their room, their house, their friends, their life. And my children don't lose a thing. But I was a partner in the crime. I don't hear much shouting going on right now. When it comes to being nice, you guys don't enjoy that very much. And that's one of your problems. Brother, when I walk behind this pulpit, I'm a roaring lion. When I walk out of this pulpit, I believe everything that I believed, but I believe with all of my heart that the members of First Baptist Church ought to have a man in that pulpit who loves them. Who loves them. One of the great love stories in this world is the love story between the members of First Baptist Church and Brother Hyles. And I'll tell you, there never has been a group of people in this world who stood by their preacher like my church has stood by me. I owe my life to him. I owe my ministry to him. And one reason is, for 35 and a half years, I've loved the fire out of them and preached the devil out of them. Because I shared in the crime of hiring the wrong man. His wife loses everything. His children lose everything. He loses everything. And I get rid of excess baggage. It's not fair. So what do? I transfer him to some other department. I have 7 people who are happily and satisfactorily employed in the ministry of First Baptist Church today who did not work out in the job where I hired them. And they should have been fired, but they were not fired. They were transferred to another job, and now they're working out beautifully. Mistake number 4. I came to Chicago. I had always pastored a church on the other side of the tracks. I'd always pastored the Gilead Baptist Church, or the Maranatha Baptist Church, or the King James Bible Baptist Church, or I Hate the United Nations Baptist Church. The rich folks were always downtown. Now, we're not a rich church. We have some wealth in the church here. Every Sunday morning when I preach, the leading open heart surgeon in this area sits right up there. dentist sits right back here. Businessmen sit in the choir and all over the building. And we have 7 doctors in our church. And several lawyers sitting right back there every Sunday morning is a wonderful young lawyer. But now wait a minute. I was always a pastor. Everybody, I always heard about people that won someone to Christ and they gave them $1 million the next week. Everybody I ever won to Christ had to bail them out of jail before I could get them baptized. But I came to Hammond, and that man ran that department store. He said to Miss Hyles and me, I send the pastor on a worldwide cruise all the month of August. And he said, you and Miss Hyles will be going on a worldwide cruise every August or anywhere in the world you want to go, and I will foot the bill. He called us over there and said, pick out $9,000 worth of drapes for your house, and that would be $90,000 now. And all of a sudden, I was the mayor's pastor. I was the bank president's pastor. I had 7 millionaires on my board of trustees. I was somebody for the first time. And I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed it. I really did. And I decided that maybe I could preach the same stuff without beating the pulpit. Without those gestures that were falsely accused of me to me about Bucky Tucker a while ago. Now, I hate to admit what I did. The first year they had the American Baptist Convention state annual meeting. It was in Anderson, Indiana, First Baptist Church. I did not know much about the American Baptist Convention. I did not know how liberal it was, but I went. My assistant pastor and I went. They recognized the new pastors in the state for the year, and I went on the platform, First Baptist Church of Anderson, Indiana. I hate to admit this. And they welcomed me as the new pastor in the state of Indiana. We were Southerners. We didn't know much about the American Baptist Convention, but I knew I shouldn't have been there. Jim Lyons and I were sitting there, and they had introduced the convention sermon to be brought by Reverend Mrs. Miller. And Reverend Mrs. Miller stood up, and Reverend Hyles walked out and came back and pulled my church out of the American Baptist Convention. But the mistake I made was wanting to be accepted and wanting to be somebody. I'd never been anything before. Now I had a chance. Mistake number 5, just to make this comment. I made a mistake in my early ministry by not sending my preacher boys off to college. I decided that I'd train them myself in my own church. And I'll promise you, hardly any of them in those days turned out to be successful preachers. Preacher boys need to go away to college and have a boot camp. And they need it tough. One reason Hyles Anderson College fellows are successful around the country is, boy, they are in boot camp while they're in Hyles Anderson College. Mistake number 6, when I was voted out of the Southern Baptist Convention, I got bitter for 6 months. And that's nothing, no way for a preacher to be. Mistake number 7, and here's a mistake some of you guys are making. I overbuilt my auditorium. I overbuilt my auditorium. I want to give you some things this morning about that. I say this always: bill for your Sunday night crowd. Don't bill for your Sunday morning crowd. Jam them in, have extra services, do something. But don't build an auditorium, take care of that Sunday morning crowd, and the folks rattle around on Sunday night. You bill for your Sunday night crowd, and even for your Wednesday night crowd. But by all means, listen, in my generation, 1960s and 70s, great churches are growing up all over this country, and we became enchanted with big auditoriums. Now you understand, this auditorium cannot take care of our crowd. On a Sunday morning, if we average 20,000 people here, this auditorium, last night we didn't have more than 7,500 people, and they were everywhere in this auditorium. But we couldn't build. If we built the place where Michael Jordan plays basketball, it wouldn't take care of our crowd. Wrigley Field couldn't take care of our crowd last Sunday morning. I'm talking about the Chicago Cubs baseball park couldn't have taken care of our crowd Sunday morning. but I'll never build again. No auditorium. I may build, but no auditorium. You know why? Because this thing is packed Sunday morning, it's packed Sunday night, and on Wednesday night, it's pretty nearly packed. And the Spirit's wonderful. But I overbuilt. I built a 2,200-seat auditorium when I was running 1,600 in Sunday school. Looked good on Sunday morning. The 1,100 that came back on Sunday night half filled that big building. And the Texas largest midweek service was 700 people. 1/3 of that building was filled on Wednesday night, and we just rattled around in the auditorium. Fellas, a pretty new auditorium that's real big is only good for one thing, and that's to show your friends as they come through during the week. But you'll learn to hate it. I can tell you churches right now that are overbuilding. I'm predicting right now 3 or 4 churches I know that are planning to build that are going to destroy their churches and their spirit because they're overbuilding. Let me give you some things, just read a list of things here for you and about building. First place, the pulpit should be no more than 7 feet from the front row. Stay close to the people. Second, the center aisle no more than 5 feet wide, and I mentioned this the other day. This aisle is 4 feet wide, I think it is, maybe 5, but should not be a wide aisle. I like people in front of me. 3, the side aisle should be wider than the center aisle. 4, the platform should be 6 inches high for every 10 feet long. If the building is 60 feet long, the platform should be 3 feet high. 6 inches high for every 10 feet long. The ceiling height, no more than 1/4 of the length of the building. The ceiling height, no more than 1/4 of the length of the building. Now, fellas, some of you guys are building buildings going to kill you. Most serious time in the life of a church is when they go into a new auditorium. And new auditoriums have killed churches than have helped churches. For example, it's the cubic footage and not the square footage that you ought to be concerned about in an auditorium. You take a bunch of people on one floor here with no mezzanine, no balcony, and raise this roof about 20 feet higher, and we'll look insignificant. People ought to fill up not only the floor, but they ought to fill up the building. And so I recommend, and this is not something I just wrote down this morning. I've studied it for 45 years. Number 6, well, I mentioned that, the importance of cubic feet versus square feet. Number 7, PA speakers should be near your own voice. PA should not come from back there. And I hate with a passion these speakers that line the walls. You see, what you're doing is you letting some electronic engineer thinks he knows something, and he does know more about electronics than you do, but does know more about preaching than you do. I love to hear my voice when I preach. That's why I want the speakers. My speakers right here, and those black things there are some speakers, and some are organ speakers. But all the sound for this building comes from right here. Now, we have a few little speakers in the mezzanine, so mezzanine can hear better, but the speakers should come near from where your voice is. Number 8, and I mentioned this a while ago, no PA speakers down the side of the auditorium. Let me say a word about speakers. You've heard me say this again and again. Turn the treble up. Turn the treble up and the bass down. Turn the treble up and the bass down. And I believe in it. I preach with the treble all the way up and the bass all the way down. And folks, they laugh at me because I say that so much. I'm getting old, and I'm not hearing very well. I hear everything I want to hear, but I'm not hearing very well. So I went to the doctor and decided to get one of those little miracle hearing aids, the kind that you can't see very well. And the doctor was checking me as a female doctor, and she was checking my hearing. And she said, "Reverend, tell your reverends to keep the treble up and the bass down in their services." And I said, "Well, what do you know about that?" That's the doctor said that. Tell the reverends to keep, she said, because the bassy sound will muffle your voice. And the treble sound will give your voice a crispness. So, number 9, in the building, direct lighting. Don't give me a dark building. Don't give me a dark, and don't let some light expert put your lights in. You be the PA expert, you be the light expert, and have the thing light. God deliver me from dark buildings. The only reason I like ceilings that are like this rather than just dark wood, gable type ceilings. They don't give enough light. Number 9, the choir close to the congregation. Number 10, choir ratio, no more than 10% of the audience. The choir ratio, no more than 10% of the audience. Number 12, build so the capacity can be expanded. When this building was built, we did not have these overhangs here or these up here, these over here. We did not have the mezzanine. All we had was 5,000 seats of what you see on the main floor and behind the overhang up there. All of that was added later. We got seats everywhere now. Every nook and cranny we got seats, and closed circuit television and so forth. But number 13, pews no less than 34 inches apart. Pews no less than 34 inches. I prefer 36. That's from any given point on one pew to the same given point on the pew behind it. 36 inches, but no less than 34 inches. Listen to this one carefully. 14. A small auditorium should not be fan-shaped. We have a fan-shaped auditorium here because we want folks close to us. But a small auditorium, you may have 8 pews in front of you and there's nobody to preach to. They're all over here. A small auditorium should not be fan-shaped. When you get an auditorium that seats 1,000, you might want to fan-shape it, but I would not fan-shape a smaller auditorium. Next number, I mentioned this already. So the next number, prepare your people for the new building. Now I want to give you the best advice you'll ever have in your life. Every time we have gone into a new auditorium or an enlarged auditorium, I've taken 6 weeks to prepare my people for the inevitabilities and the negatives that's going to cause. I'll tell you what I teach them. I teach them this: you'll not be able to hear the amens like you did. In a small building, okay, you got a building that seats 200 people. Boy, and the Spirit's great. You build that 600-seat auditorium, and the Spirit's not going to be that great. And your people are going to say, what's wrong? Our folks aren't saying amen. Yes, they are. It's just not bouncing off the walls like it used to. Now, if they know to expect that, it may save your church. So I spend 6 weeks on Wednesday night teaching my people what to expect. For example, the testimonies will be difficult to hear. In a building like this, we can't have testimonies in this building. We never do. Nobody can hear them. If a guy over here, do you know that this building is about the length of a football field? Try testifying at Soldier Field sometime. You know that these people up here are almost a third of a block from these people back here? So we can't testify in this auditorium. We just can't do it. Now, when your auditorium gets bigger, you're going to do one of 2 things. Either you're going to have to quit having testimonies, or you're going to have a dead testimony because nobody can hear what the folks are saying. Now, your folks ought to know that. They ought to know before they go in the building. And preach on the assets of it. Thank God we can reach more people, and thank God we're going to have more space. But along with the assets, there are also liabilities. And I teach my folks those liabilities. I say, for example, congregational singing won't be as loud. You get a little crowd of people, 200 people in a small, low-ceiling building, and brother, they can sing and keep bouncing around. But you get people in a building like this, and the singing is not going to be as loud. Now, the folks won't know it. Preacher, you know what the trouble is? You're dumb. What I'm telling you right now, you ought to thought of. And I'm talking to men right now whose churches are having serious trouble because you didn't do what I'm talking about right now. I warned them. I also tell my people, as soon as we get this auditorium, you get a regular place to sit. That's vital. You need to feed at home in a hurry, so sit in that same spot all the time. You know, when I go preaching in churches, I preach in some churches every year. When I go sit, and there's a preacher before me, I always sit in the same place I sat last year, even though I only go there once a year, because I feel at home there. And so teach your people to get a regular place to sit. Do not, next number, do not call on the people to lead in prayer from the pew. Oh, brother, some of you guys ought to leave your heads for the Smithsonian Institute. Quit beating around the bush. I mean, brother so-and-so, would you lead us in prayer? And nobody can hear brother so-and-so. And all of us are afraid we're going to be the only one left standing. So we're all. Somebody ought to give you a doctor of idiocy. If they can't hear the guy pray, bring him up and let him pray behind the microphone. But let your people know it's going to be that way before they get there. Tell them how it's going to be, so when it happens, they'll expect it, and you won't ruin the church. Next number, practice preaching and song leading with a bigger auditorium in mind. I'll give you an example. When I was in seminary, I took congregational song leading and choir directing. I already had a wonderful voice, and so I added that talent to it. And I know how to direct a song. But before my people, before we built this auditorium, I talked to my song leader, and I said, now it's going to take bigger gestures. You don't do it like this in a small auditorium. Down at the cross where my Savior died. You don't do it that way in a big auditorium. It's down at the cross. The bigger gestures. And that's important. And I practice preaching. I come in this building every week of my life. I practice the walk I take from that door right there. Every week. I practice the walk I take from this chair to the pulpit. Every week. I practice how I sit here on the platform. Every week I practice it. I walk in here and I practice. Why? Because this is the most important thing in the world. I mean, the Chicago Symphony is piddling stuff compared to what goes on here. I went when Mr. Carter was president. I was invited to go to the White House to have a deal with him. I was shocked how sloppily the White House is run. I told Mr. Carter we should come to pastor school some year. We could help you. I'm saying that the average Baptist church is the sloppiest run thing and ought to be the best run thing in the whole town. Get in your pulpit. Practice looking at your people. For example, I preach from that aisle right there to that aisle right there. If I turn this way and preach to them, my back is to them. If I turn to preach to these folks, my back. But I can preach to these from that aisle there, that aisle over there, without turning my back on anybody. I practice that. I got a book I've written on the science of the Christian life. I don't understand why a preacher shouldn't make a science out of preaching, and a science out of this building. I'm saying, I taught a series of Bible lessons from Ezra and Nehemiah on building, and 6 of those lessons were taught to my people, preparing them for the negatives and the liabilities that were going to come with the assets of having a bigger building. I'm just going to read you 8 things about what to do when the building is too big. Number 1, you can widen the side aisles, not the center aisle, widen the side aisles. Number 2, you can lengthen the space between the pews. Number 3, you can remove some of the pews from the back. Number 4, do not rope off sections. You're saying to the whole world then, we're down. Number 5, you can extend the platform toward the people. Number 6, you can lower the ceiling. Number 7, you can put shrubs and imitation trees all the way around the church auditorium and pull the pews in. Number 8, you can build a vestibule in the back with classrooms on the sides maybe. But those are some ideas. Now, let me tell you something, folks. I'm going to close this session right now. But let me tell you something. We do not realize what causes troubles in our churches. I promise you that 1/3 of the church troubles in America are caused by ignorant building. And what you do is this. You let some professional architect draw up your building and he decides everything. And you're scared of him. Listen, when we hire an architect, we hire the architect. I pay him. I'm his boss. And then we have some electronic engineer come in and let him set up the PA system. And then we choose some electronic experts to run the PA room. And we let them control our voices. Now, please, I'm not a dictator financially. I'll tell you about that later on, but I'm not a dictator of the finances of this church. This church is a democracy financially. When it comes to the PA system, and I've got the best PA men in the world up there, and they're experts, but I tell them what to do. You say, you must be the dictator. You're getting close. I go through that songbook. I go through that, and I check the songs I'll approve to use for congregational songs at First Baptist Church of Hammond. At Hyles Anderson College, if one of our, or any of our schools, if one of our teachers or professors has a guest to take 5 minutes to testify, I approve it. We had Dr. Lee Robertson. We have him every semester. Had him preach at the college. One of our faculty members had asked him to come and spend a few minutes teaching a part of his class. I found out about it, called a faculty member in, shoot him out. Said, why? I said, you had Dr. Robertson teach part of your class, and I didn't approve it. Why, you said you approved Dr. Robertson in his chapel. I said, that's chapel. If somebody stands up and burps in class, I approve the burp. You say, who do you think you are? I know who I am. I'm God's man. Now, I'm not saying that you ought to go home and be unkind. I said again, I got the best men up there in the world operating this PA system. But this morning, the group was too loud. I picked up my phone, pushed number 5, and I said, turn it down. Now, your PA man, get him walk out. And that would be the best day of your life. I was preaching years ago. I was preaching in Marietta, Georgia. I told a PA man, I said, turn me up some. And he said, I can't. They're sitting right back there. I said, turn me up. I said, I'm coming back there if you don't turn me up. And they got mad and walked out. Never came back to the church again. Pastor wrote me a thank you letter. You know what you are? You know your trouble? You're a wimp. You know, when we were in the war, our company never voted what we were going to do. Financially and in business matters, this church is a pure democracy. See, you're not. You have some finance committee running your finances. We don't have a finance committee. Our deacons can recommend, but the church votes on every dime that's spent with money unless that money is designated for a purpose. But when it comes to the church program, when it comes to this platform, when it comes to the Sunday school, I'm a dictator. And I got some of my folks here today, and they like it that way. And all they got to do if they don't is we have business meetings and they can vote me out. I'll get me a pair of Bermuda shorts on, and I'll go to Florida and retire, play shuffleboard the rest of my life. Okay, we're going to have just a little extra now.
While sitting on his mother's knee, the young Jack Hyles, while growing up in abject poverty, often heard his mother sing the song, "Brighten the Corner Where You Are." The song was written by Ina Dooley Ogden, a young lady with a beautiful voice who was preparing for a world tour to go around the world singing about Jesus, when her father was suddenly taken seriously ill and she had to cancel that world tour to stay home to nurse her father. Heartbroken, her father challenged her, that though her voice could not go around the world, she could at least brighten the corner where she was. And she penned the words that traveled around the world and into the heart of Coastal Maddie Hyles, who sang them into the heart and the mind of her young son.
Till some deed of greatness you may do. Do not wait to shed your light afar. To the many duties ever near you now be true. Brighten the corner where you are. Brighten the corner where you are. Brighten the corner where you are. Someone far from harbor you may guide across the if you brighten the corner where you are. Here for all your talent you may surely find a need. Here reflect the bright and morning star. Even from your humble hand the bread of life may feed. Brighten the corner where you are. Brighten the corner where you are. Brighten the corner where you are. Someone far from harbor you may guide across the bar. If you'll brighten the corner where you are. Someone far from harbor you may guide across the bar. If you'll brighten the corner, brighten the corner, brighten the corner where you are.
My mother would sit me down in a little shack of a place, outhouse in the backyard, and windows stuffed in, newspaper stuffed in the windows to keep the wind out, and wood stove, kerosene lamps and lanterns on Ann Arbor Street. Mother'd put a little 4 or 5-year-old boy on her lap, and she'd say, "Now, son, you're as good as anybody, but you're better than nobody." And she taught me, "You're as good as anybody, but you're better than nobody." Now, she said, we don't have a car, we don't have a house, we don't have any money, we don't eat nice fancy food. But she said, there's one thing we can do right here in this little 2-room shack. We can brighten it up. And my mother, in a voice about like mine, rocked me to sleep singing that song. Brighten the corner where you are. Someone far from harbor you may guide across the bar if you just brighten the corner where you are. My sister's coming now. I don't know where she is, but I want my sister to come. Here she is, my lovely sister. I wanted you to meet her. I'd planned to do it later today, but I pulled it up to this morning. I wanted you to meet my sister. My sister, I would not be here today if it weren't for my sister. One of the loveliest ladies you ever met in your life. She's 25 years older than I am. No, she's 8 years older than I am. My sister is 76 years old. She looks like she's 40, doesn't she? And she's the head bookkeeper and bursar at Hyles Anderson College and has been for how long? Talk right into that mic.
Since the college began, 22 years.
Since the college started, 22 years. She's been the bursar, head bookkeeper, runs all the books at Hyles Anderson College and does a wonderful job, and we barely stay above water. In fact, we may be underwater right now. But we ended last year with $7,000. It takes us here at First Baptist, all of our ministries, $40,000 a day to stay in business every day. $40,000 every day, 365 days a year. $15 million a year is what our budget is for all the ministries. Now, she does not operate the church budget, but she operates all the others. And she stays right on. But that's not why she's here. She's here because I want to tell you that I would not be here if it weren't for my sister. My daddy was an alcoholic. When I was a little boy, my sister graduated from high school and got a job at the Pollock Paper Company, making $10 a week. And every week, part of that $10, she would buy something for her brother. She brought me a ball every week. Now, we'd knock the stuffings out of it before the week was up. But every Saturday afternoon, she worked till noon, got paid $10 a week. She always brought a baseball home with her when she came home. The first baseball glove I ever had, she bought me. The first bicycle I ever had, a Western Flyer from Western Auto, she bought it for me and paid it $1 a week. And she bought me that bicycle. She kept me fed. She fed my mama. She saved my neck. And she's been everything that a sister ought to be. One of the most gracious, lovely ladies. One of the best soul winners you ever want to meet in your life. And I wanted you to meet her. Arlene, good things only, please. Tell a few memories you have about the young Jack Hyles. No cursing.
I think probably it's been a long time ago. You know that. But there was a difference in our age. But there was
Still
always.
Still is, by the way.
I'd forgotten that. But Mother always wanted us to be close. And she kept that closeness with us, even though there was a difference in our age. He was, to me, a little brother, just in your way, you know, how a child is. And when I was, let's say, 10 and he was 2 years old, well, he was in my way. But after I got older, I could see there was something about my brother that was different. And the things that he would do that I did not think was wrong. I'm sorry, I did not get saved until a later age. But I did not think it was wrong, but he did. And one day I can remember when you wanted to play baseball that night on Sunday night, and you wanted you wanted the team to win, but you could not play on Sunday. He was sitting out under the tree in the side of we did not have air conditioning at that time, and he was sitting out under the tree, and he was praying all afternoon. And I went out there, and I hate to say this, but this is what I said to you. I said, Jack, there's just one ball game, and there'll be Sunday nights from now on. And he said, I'll never forget, probably one reason that stuck to my head that I got saved later. And in fact, he won me to the Lord. But he looked at me and he said, it might not be bad for you, but I think it would be bad for me. I'll never forget that.
That's good. Remember the time that the Catholic priest wanted me to pitch for him? We lived on Exeter. And the Catholic priest, they're playing for the Catholic championship, and they're allowed to choose one player that wasn't a Catholic, and he knew I was a softball pitcher. So he came by on a Sunday afternoon with his regalia on, his bathrobe and everything, and he was standing out on the front porch trying to talk me into going pitching on Sunday afternoon. Well, my mother taught me not to touch a baseball on Sunday, and I know Sunday's not the Sabbath, but my mother didn't know that, and so she wouldn't let, and so my mother came to the door and she said, "Son, what is it? What's that priest want?" And I said, "He wants me to pitch for him." And she said to the priest, she said, "Now you get off our porch and get in your car and drive off." He said, but we need Jack to pitch for us. We're allowed to have one player. It's not a Catholic, and we don't have a pitcher, and we can win the championship if Jack will pitch for us. Mother said, "I told you to get off the porch, get in your car, and drive off." He wouldn't do it. My mother went back and got the broom and went out and started swinging it like that. And she chased that fellow all the way to his car, and as he drove off, she was behind the car swinging that broom. And
that was our mother.
Anything else you can think of? It's good.
He talked about the ball. He talked about the bicycle. But let me tell you, that was the greatest investment I ever made. I'm still getting dividends from it right now. Thank you.
I tell you, I send her a check every month out of my pocket because I love her and because she bought me a bicycle. I wish many a time she had never bought me a bicycle. Would you stand right there? I wrote a little song. I want you to hear it.
Because of you, I'm here today. You had a part in some small way. Whate'er I am or hope to be, you had a part in making me. You crossed my path one happy day and helped me find God's perfect way. I would not know the joys he had you not humbly crossed my path.
All right, we're going to take a break, and let's see, we'll be back at 10 minutes till. We'll start at 10 minutes till 11. You're dismissed until then.